Hello, Embrace Creative Community, fellow artists. This is Fernando Del Rosario again with my third episode as far as me sharing my thoughts, creativity, knowledge in regards of marketing, advertising as a creative and as a fellow artist. So today's question is, when did you know? So, as I stated before, I love to start these talks with a question. And today's question is, when did you know? When did you know that you wanted to be an artist, or when you wanted to just create and express yourself, express your creativity? When did you know that you had stories to share with people, that you had a craft or this burning desire to create something, and in many ways create something out of nothing? And when did you know that this is something that you wanted to do, no matter what anybody said, as far as whether you should have grown out of it or not, or whether you should have gotten a real job than being an artist. So the question is, when did you know this is it? This is what you wanted to do? If I may share with you, when I knew, when I found out, or when I really kind of decided on, well, it was very early on in my life. I was born and grew up in the Philippines. We were a kind of a typical Filipino family. I have three other siblings, older siblings. I had my mother, my father. My father wasn't always around, but when he was around, it was really, really wonderful. He was a architect by trade, and so he had a really great way to draw. He was able to draw characters and layouts. And so when I would see him, and when he would come and spend time with us, he would draw me things, or he would take me to the local small store and maybe buy me stickers. And so that was really my first introduction to any form of art form, was through my father. And as a kid, as a young boy, having my dad be able to create, draw something from a blank piece of paper was just extraordinary. To this day, I remember one of the very first things that he created for me was a Captain America shield, and as a kid, it was huge. And it was this shield made out of cardboard. And I remember, kind of asking for if he could do this for me, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem." So he drew, he cut out the circle, and he drew the first two circles, just like how Captain America's shield was. And here I am. I was expecting a star in the middle, very simple star, just like what Captain America had. And but instead, he drew a Captain America in the middle of this shield. A Captain America that was running towards you. And I just remember thinking, that was awesome. And not just that it was awesome because I was a kid and I had my own shield, but I was expecting something, and what I was expecting was already pretty amazing and awesome in my mind. But then he drew something else, something even better than what I was expecting. He drew Captain America on it, and so it wasn't just the specialty of it, but the originality behind it. And at that point, as a kid, and I look back in retrospect, and what that did for me is that it made me realize that through art, my dad had complete control in what he was doing. And so I of course, as a kid, I was inspired by that, and I started drawing myself. And growing up in a third world country, we had, just the basic resources to live. Certainly didn't necessarily have any expendable income, and so we really didn't have that much extra money for me to buy comic books, or for my mom to buy any comic books. And so I remember I started to draw my own comic books. I figured I was drawing. I was learning how to draw, and I wanted to tell stories, and so I started to draw my own comic books, and and they were terrible, but they were amazing in my mind's eye. Um, and I made up my own characters, and so growing up, um, I kept on drawing. But I was just drawing just enough to do something. I wasn't really improving on these drawings. And so as I grew up, drawing and drawing, kind of keeping my skill set the same, I thought, oh, I was going to be good enough to draw, to be a comic book artist. And I remember going through high school. We'd moved here to America at that point, and growing up now in America, totally a brand new world, with very little friends to really kind of make me feel confident in who I am. I was very much an introvert as a kid, with knowing that there is an extrovert living inside of me. But as I kept on drawing, I got accepted to art school, to go to college. And I remember thinking, okay, you know what? I was good enough to get into art school. I'm going to be a comic book artist. And then, sure enough, there were so many other wonderful, amazing figure illustrators that their skill set was so much more than mine, and it was a real wake up call for me that I didn't necessarily have the same level of skill set to be a comic book artist, or to draw figures, to draw hands, to draw faces, and so on. But I knew how to design. I knew how to put layouts together. But more importantly, I still had this burning desire to tell a story, and so I was able to express and tell my stories through design. And on top of that, I was a pretty decent presenter. And then again, there was that inner extrovert that was living inside of me. And when I was able to present my design, that extrovert came out, and I was able to tell the story of my design. And it wasn't until years and years within my career in marketing, advertising, and design, where I revisited my artistic background, my fine arts background of drawing and painting and sketching. And so I picked it up again. And so now I've showcased in 40 different gallery showings. But that's when I knew, way back then. And I share this with you, and why it's important for everybody knows that when you knew. But it's equally important to be able to tell that story, to be able to articulate that story, because people want to know. People want to know when you got started, when you knew. And through that sharing, it invites people into your work, to your creativity, to your narrative. And that's marketing. That's marketing for people to want to be engaged with your story and want to eventually be part of your story. So that takes my 10 minutes. I wanted to share that with you all for this third video. I'll talk more about it as far as being able to tell your story and why that is relevant to being able to market your art, your craft, and your creativity. Thank you so much, and until next time.